Hi, everyone. Good morning, and thanks for joining us today. Our guest today is Tania Gonzalez Ortega, and I'll read her bio in a minute. Hello, Jessica and Raimi. Good to see you guys.
Good. Hello.
And I'll read Tania's bio here. Tania Gonzalez Ortega is an energy healer, family constellations facilitator, alphabetologist, and an educator who helps women heal from trauma and childhood wounding so that they can step into their passion and purpose. Tania has 25 years of experience in working with energy and has helped hundreds of clients heal mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual issues. She currently lives with her husband and son on their organic goat dairy in Twist, Washington. If you go to her website, which is newearthconsciousness.com, she has a free meditation available for reconnecting with your ancestors. And she has a couple programs that she offers too that would be great if you contacted her about. And all her information will be in the description below. So, Tania, thank you so much for joining us today. And I would love to hear your story, how you got into the work you do, and
Yeah,
anything else you'd like to share with us today.
great. Yeah, thanks for having me, Carla. Yeah, so basically, I my journey, I guess, as getting into healing work, it started with my sorry, my dog's walking back and forth in the window there.
A distraction,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, so in my 20s in college, I was very much drawn to just naturally from within curious about various religions, curious about meditation, and I kind of find myself diving into self-inquiry, like who am I? What is the mind and things like that. And so and I was an art major at the time, so doing art is kind of what led me into that deeper self-inquiry. So then once I graduated from college, I ended up getting involved in yoga, and I did a yoga teacher training through the Shivananda Yoga organization, and it was a 4-week training in Canada. And during that training, I had a spontaneous Kundalini awakening in a meditation. I was by myself in this like geodesic dome type of thing. It was called the Peace Hut. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to go meditate there and practice my mantra as I was taught by the swamis there. And so I had this Kundalini awakening experience. Now, at the time, I didn't know what was happening to me. I felt myself fill with light, and I got lighter and lighter and lighter. I felt like I was rising. And then there was this huge growl, like a lion's roar or something. And it I was like, whoa, it like snapped me out of it, because I was like, it was terrifying. And I thought, wow, what was that? I didn't know. And then after that, I started to have just wild symptoms. I lost a lot of weight. My digestive system was in total turmoil. My menstrual cycle disappeared. I started having these out-of-body experiences. At night, I would have what felt like this electrical, it was very uncomfortable, like shock, like I was being plugged into an outlet. Like it's what it felt like, this shocking energy. So it was 2 years of what I call dark night of the soul. So because I didn't have anyone, well, first of all, I didn't understand what was happening. I just thought, oh, I guess I thought this was just part of being on the yogic path. Like it was just something you had to bear. I never shared it with the swamis that I was, I guess, under their tutelage. But I just became very sick, really, essentially. And so I struggled with this for 2 years, and nothing helped. Like I went to an acupuncturist, I went to an Ayurvedic doctor. I even saw, I think, a naturopath. I tried Western medicine. And it got so bad that eventually, like, I returned home and decided and, sought help from my mother, because I was like, okay, I am just like out in the middle of the ocean here. I don't know what's going on. Can't really function. Um, and then chronic fatigue really started to set in as well. Um, so I was put on psychiatric medicine, which at that time I already had this knowing that it wasn't going to help. I was already too far down the rabbit hole to understand that this was not something that was going to get fixed with medication. But I did it anyway. And then, long story short, I had just synchronicities kind of happened, came together. And I ended up meeting a gentleman in Colorado who is a devotee of Christ. And I was prayed over, and I had this miraculous experience of suddenly all of that stuff disappearing overnight. The anxiety, the depression, feeling disconnected from my soul, the Kundalini symptoms, they just completely disappeared. But I want to back up and say, though, that during that time, in that second year, I was living in Arizona, and the symptoms that I was having was like the Kundalini energy was so strong. It was like, it felt like someone had a hammer at the top of my head and was just like beating it. So it was just this pain at the top of my head. I couldn't even sit up straight. It hurt so bad. And someone had mentioned to me, a friend of a friend said, "Oh, you should go see my friend, or see my, I know of a healer. Her name's Mega Mies. She's a clairvoyant. I think you should go see her." And at that point, I didn't even know what a clairvoyant was. And I went, and she did the Reiki. And it was the first time I felt a significant shift in my energy. It just felt like it smoothed out. It released the pain. And I was able to, like, finally was able to breathe, to I just felt so at peace. And so that led me to work with her for a good year. And then after the symptoms lifted and kind of disappeared, and there's a lot to that. There's so much that I learned from that whole experience. But in a nutshell, like, the dark night of the soul is something that you can't rush. You kind of have to surrender, basically, right? There's nothing. When you read St. John of the Cross, he talks about it. And that was the only thing that was kind of keeping me tethered to staying on the planet, was like, okay, he says it's kind of up to God to just surrender. Like, meditation's not going to help, prayer's not going to help. You can try and, seek relief, but you really just have to surrender. And that's kind of what I did. I ended up just completely, finally surrendering. And that's when it finally let go. So I ended up, studying Reiki, and I learned, then I went into crystalline consciousness technique, was also a very powerful modality, which I had come to learn that we also have now. It's this new energy system called the crystalline energy system. And I think more and more people are talking about it, but basically it's, we have an electromagnetic energy system, and then the Earth herself has kind of gone through this big energy shift around 2012. And so now we have this crystalline energy system where the water in our tissues, which exists in a gel-like state, holds light and information in such a way that it doesn't cause the blowout like I had with the Kundalini experience. That's like an example of like blowing out your circuits, And so we now have this newer, faster operating system. So I studied and practiced that for a long time. And then I experienced Family Constellations work, which kind of blew my mind. There was a demonstration I'd never heard of it. A friend had said, I think you should come check it out. I thought, sure, I'll do that. My mother was with me, so she came too. And so there's a room full of people and the facilitator. And she said, well, who would like to receive a constellation? So immediately I raised my hand. And so she picked me. And she says, okay, so tell me, what is it that you want to address? So in family constellations, like you don't talk about, you don't go into the story. You don't go into, well, my mother was like this, and my father was like that, and this happened to me, and this is how it made me feel. It's not talk therapy at all. And so she basically said, I just let me know, what is it that you want to, what is the issue? And I said, well, I've had all these health issues, as I've shared with you, like, all this stuff. I said, I've had heavy metal issues, like digestive issues, like it's just like I've had all, like it's just ongoing, And at that point, I'd healed a lot of it, but I was still struggling. There were still physical issues going on, and that's all I said. She said, great, okay, so in this room of people, select someone to be your father, someone to be you, someone to be your mother. So I did that. I picked someone to be me, and I placed them in the field. So in the room, I just said, okay, I'm going to put you here. My father's here. My mother's here. And the interesting thing is that when you have the intention of, there's something about this process that you step into the knowing field, is what it's called in family constellations. And what ends up happening is the people that are representing those individuals in your family and yourself, they immediately start to feel things. They'll just, they might have sensations in their bodies, certain emotions. And so that's what started happening. And so interestingly, and she had me bring in my brother as well. So me, my brother, mother, and father. So generally speaking, you start with your family of origin. So she noticed that the representative that was my mother was looking down at the ground. And so the family constellation facilitator said, so because my mother was there, she asked her point blank, did you have any miscarriages? And the answer was yes. And so what blew me away about that was I didn't know anything about this. My mother never said to me that she had had 2 miscarriages, that there was someone that was miscarried before me. I was the firstborn, or I thought I was the firstborn. There was actually a child before me, and there was a child after my brother. So in family constellations, when you have a death that isn't acknowledged, even if it's a miscarriage or an abortion, they still belong to the family, even if they didn't fully live their life, those 2 children were, I guess souls were not honored. They weren't grieved, they weren't honored, they weren't named. And so in my case, my whole life, I thought I was the firstborn, and I was living my life as if I was the firstborn. So Bert Hellinger would say that distorts the orders of love, and it causes issues. So it was causing issues for me, living with that and not having that secret be revealed. And then she went on to bring in the ancestors in my mother's lineage. So my grandmother, which is her mother, her mother's mother, on and so on and so forth, until I think she brought in maybe 4 or 5 generations, people that came in and stood in. And what was really fascinating is at one point in the generation, in the lineage, one woman stepped in, and she immediately felt ill. She collapsed down to the ground, and she was like, I suddenly feel really, really sick. I can't stay in this role. I need to go home. So she did. She left. And what that showed the constellator and myself is there was a lot of trauma in that lineage that was passed down. So we didn't, even though we didn't know exactly what had happened, what it was, but knowing my lineage, like I know that my grandmother's mother died at a young age. She died of breast cancer. The father was extremely abusive. They were poor. They grew up in the Great Depression, all of that. And so as I'm watching this, I'm watching it like a movie, I'm not saying anything. I'm just watching it play out. And what was so fascinating to me is that at the end, so let me back up and say, when I was studying crystalline consciousness technique, my teacher had said to me at one point, she said, Tania, most of your health issues aren't yours. Like, you're carrying other people's stuff. And which, okay, great to know, but how do I deal with that? And so in the constellation at the end, I then stood in. So then she had the woman that was standing in as me step out and for me to step into the constellation. And the minute I stepped into that constellation, my whole body started shaking, and I just started sobbing like uncontrollably, which is not my nature. I'm not a crier. Like, that whole time I'm just watching it like it's a movie, like, wow, this is weird, But the minute I step into the field to receive, I was like, whoa, it was huge. And so that constellation was about 10 years ago, and it was only until the last 3 years that Family Constellations came back into my life, and I was offered a training, and I just said, yes, of course, sign me up. And so I signed up for the training, and I've been doing mostly one-on-one constellations, which is different than the workshop format, right? One-on-one is where I'm doing all the representing. So I use stones, and some people don't want to have their issue on display in front of a whole group of people, especially strangers, right? So for some people, it's too vulnerable, and so they prefer the one-on-one. So that's what I do mostly. But I've been trying to do some stuff online. It can be challenging to gather a big enough group of people to do constellation. But anyway, I know I'm rambling and I'm dumping a lot of information out there for you guys, but yeah, so that has been my journey, and yeah, it's been interesting for sure. A wild ride.
Yeah, very interesting. Where did the alphabetology come in, and how
Yeah.
does that play in with, do you use that and family constellations together, or is that something separate?
So, another way I call it is transformative handwriting. And there's a lot to it. There's so much to it. Josephine Diamond is the founder of Alphabetology. And she's been studying handwriting, graphology, and namology for like 17 years. So alphabetology is a combination of three things. It's graphology, which is reading a person's hand, being able to look at a person's handwriting and seeing all of the issues. And so your handwriting can and it can reveal your gifts too. Like, oh, you can look at someone's handwriting and say, oh, this person's highly intuitive, they're very creative, they're excellent leaders, etc. And you can also say, like, oh, this person's got digestive issues, they are argumentative, etc. The namology is looking at a person's name, looking at their name. You look at the names in their family tree, and you're able to see, okay, so in your first name is what you came here to learn. So again, your gifts and your challenges as well. So for example, like my name, I'm a T. So I'm a visionary, which is interesting because my whole life, that's how I've been oriented. I got into Waldorf education because I was like, oh, visionary towards education and children. And then, just always kind of being outside of the box. And then you look at the first vowel, and the vowels also reveals a lot. So you're able to look at the name and see what their gifts and their challenges are. And then the handwriting part is when you have all that information and the client is able to say, tells you, well, this is what I want to create in my life. These are my desires. Then you can go in and start sharing with them ways to form their letters so that they are creating new neural pathways. And so it's all neuroscience, the handwriting. So the handwriting, the letters are connect to different parts of the body. Each letter is a different frequency, has a different intention, declaration of intent. And so it is a way of working with energy and working with the quantum field, because as you change your handwriting, you're changing your reality. You're changing how you experience yourself, how you interact with the world, what you bring in. And what's really interesting to me, I've had conversations with people who don't know anything about handwriting, and they've told me like, oh yeah, I remember when I was 32, I changed my handwriting, and after that, everything in my life changed. And it's true. But what most people don't know is that there are unhealthy and healthy forms of writing. So that's what I teach, and that's what I guide people through, is using handwriting kind of as like a pharmacy of, okay, this is what you're calling in. These are the things that I'm seeing in your handwriting. This is what we're going to change. So you start, becoming the person that you were meant to become. And so family constellations and the writing really do work well together, because obviously in family constellations, you're looking at the family of origin, you're seeing, what the challenges are, so it's like, for example, one of my clients, she's in my 3-month program. And so I bring in the family constellations and the writing. And so she has a theme in her life of being the black sheep. And what's interesting is that the first letter of her name is a P, which is all about self-appreciation. And so teaching her the way to write the P, doing the family constellations work so that she can see that there's actually being the black sheep is like, you're an amazing person. If you're the black sheep in the family, like, you are the one that's breaking all the generational patterns. You're creating a whole new branch for that tree. As much as the family's like, no, like, just fit in with us, and the black sheep's like, no, I can't do it. And so there's this conflict. It's like, so helping her embrace her identity to help her move forward, So yeah, I love this work. It's pretty phenomenal. Yeah.
Really, really interesting. So, I'm just thinking of the black sheep. I've called myself that a few times, and my mother always says, "No, you're not." She doesn't want me to feel that way.
Oh, yeah.
But sometimes I have felt that way. But so you see the black sheep then as something good. Can it also be just like handwriting changes? Can be good or bad, right? Or I meant lead to changes you don't want as well as changes you do want.
Yeah. So, we would say that there's no such thing as good or bad handwriting, right? But um, what the handwriting does is it helps to bring out your innate soul qualities. So certain formations of the letters that are considered unhealthy, right? We don't say it's bad. We just say it's unhealthy. Like, it just creates more challenges than you need, it just changes your energy. So I'll give you an example. So I've been doing the handwriting for like a year and a half daily. And what I've noticed is, it's funny, when Josephine Diamond looked at my writing, she said, "Do you butt heads with your husband?" This was like, I sent her a sample, and that's one of the first things she says, "Do you butt heads with your husband?" I'm like, "Oh my God, yes. How did you know?" She's like, "Well, you've got hooks in your C's. You're going to take out that hook and you'll experience things differently." So and so since I've changed my handwriting, it is amazing how much less my husband and I are arguing. And I mean, some of our arguments were just like, could be really intense. The kind of arguments where you just like can't sleep, you know, and just really struggling and a lot of disharmony. And so, yeah, so taking that out, it's like, there's just more ease that I feel in our relationship, and I'm able to see him more clearly and accept him for who he is. And yeah, and then I've also just experienced like, what we call miracles. So there was one moment in time, it was looking like we were going to have to move our whole farm, and we only had like 2 or 3 months to do so. And Josephine kept saying to me, just trust, do the handwriting. You'll always be taken care of, blah, 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 blah. And I'm okay. And I'm preparing in my mind, like, okay, we need to figure out where we're going to move. Like I'm already starting to pack stuff. And this was like close to winter, like worst time of the year to move. So I was very overwhelmed. And what ended up happening out of the blue is the landlord decided, actually, and it was because he wanted to sell the property. He's like, actually, I don't want to sell. You guys can stay. I was like, oh my God, So those kind of things can happen, when you're doing the writing. So it's not just about, personal transformation and development, although it is that, but it's also very much as within, so without, right? And we know that, like, when we change our energy, we're changing the energy field around us, which then changes how reality interacts with us, right? So does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Kind of, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I have a question. So with the handwriting, what about people with like Parkinson's who can't change their handwriting due to, I mean, there's a lot of, emotional and physical things going into that. Have you worked with anybody specifically?
Yeah. So I've asked Josephine that question, and with them, because their handwriting is very shaky.
Mm-hmm.
She would say, just doing the movements in the air with their body,
Okay.
would help them. And going back to say, so to address that too, so there is science out there that reveals that, when you start this practice earlier on in life, it helps to basically protect you from getting things like Alzheimer's, dementia, etc. So we don't know what we don't know. So in our education system, we were taught the Palmer method of handwriting, and the Palmer method has lots of loops and sharp edges and things like this. And a lot of those strokes, even a graphologist would say, yeah, those are unhealthy, and it can lead to things like anxiety, depression, Alzheimer's, dementia, like all these issues. So part of Josephine's vision is to hopefully someday get it into the public school system, because if the children had it, and the parents need it too, that's the thing. It's like, well, if the children are changing their handwriting but the parents aren't, it's really, the parents need it too. So it's kind of a, it's kind of a movement that we're trying to create. And, there's a nonprofit that's being created around it to get it out there. But yeah, so with the people with Parkinson's, you would say, okay, just draw them in the air, or that would
Well,
be helpful.
interesting.
Thank you.
It makes so much sense, though, that this school system would do that. I mean, there's so many things in the public school systems that are not helpful at all from my perspective
Yeah.
on incredible levels of our lives, right?
Right.
And at some point, I would assume that someone in authority over the school systems consciously made that choice because they knew it was wrong.
Well, exactly. And, it's, yeah, for sure. And the Palmer method, handwriting. So the Palmer method was developed in the late 1800s, I believe. So totally outdated, doesn't reflect, it keeps people trapped in a certain consciousness. And it just creates sheep. It creates people who follow authority, who just submit, and so, it's a big deal.
So how does it play in then with today's where a lot of schools, from what I've heard, aren't even teaching cursive anymore, and that plays into our legal authority as sovereign beings, as the
Absolutely.
people of the states, right, that live in the states, versus the person that is part of the legal corporate system that has been formed of all capital United States of America, versus our individual people of each state, which are sovereign. And so I've heard that being able to write your name in cursive is the only actual legal proof of a signed document. Like it to stand up in a court of law, based on those the corporate or the corporate system. It had to be a cursive handwriting to prove your sovereignty.
Yeah, and that's really deep, and it's true. Yeah, the children don't know, well, they don't even know how to read cursive, first of all. And they're not writing. And so as a Waldorf educator, Steiner understood the importance, like the fact that we have hands and the fact that we can write, it's more powerful than we realize. There's so much going on between the brain, the heart, and the hand when you're actually handwriting. And so when these kids are just typing, right, they're not making those neural connections. And they're finding now, I think it might have been Sweden that has collected some data and research around, especially the screens, that children now, they're not as intelligent as they were because they're looking at screens, they're not handwriting, they're not creative. So it's kind of a big deal. It's kind of a crisis. And I think that the taking away the handwriting, it's taking away part of our humanity. That's how I feel about it. Like, I think it takes away something that's handwriting. And there's a TED Talk of, if you were to Google for TED Talks of people talking about handwriting, it's ancient. It's just part of who we are. And so when we're removing it, it's like we're cutting ourselves. It's another layer of cutting ourselves off from our ancestors, from where we're coming from, and so it's like, I feel like there's just so many things that are happening in our world that wants to take us off of our timeline of what God intended for us to become. And so Steiner talks about this a lot, that there's just all these negative influences. So we're at this time where like it's like no other time in human history. It's like this is the time where we're either gonna wake up or we're gonna not realize what our true destiny is as human beings, so to speak, right? Um, so yeah. Anyway, it's
Yeah.
that's the reality, and I don't like to interject fear. I think the reality is that once what I'm noticing is that people are waking up in spite of all of everything that's trying to suppress us from discovering who we really are. People are like, for myself, like having a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. Not that I would wish that on anybody, but it's almost like I've met so many people that are having these kind of experiences and spiritual awakenings, right? And oh gosh, where do I want to go with that? So I just think that, so not being fearful, but also realizing that we are waking up and we are beginning to wake up to, the power that is within us. We have these amazing brains and like all this new neuroscience, learning about quantum physics. And it's like, it's at that, we're in that place where, it's like Jesus said, I think something to the effect like, in future generations, you will do so much more than I ever did. Right. So I think that we're in this place of that there's so much potential to really, really radically change our reality in our world. And I was speaking with a healer named Ken Lloyd, who's very interesting. I recommend you check him out, look him up, kenlloydofficial.com. He had a really interesting experience, near-death experience, and where he just got completely rewired, whereas before he knew nothing about spirituality. He wasn't connected to it at all. He was like a CEO of like computers and stuff like that and had all the things. And then suddenly he has this experience and his whole world changed. And what he has been tuning into and receiving is that we're just going to see so much change happen, positive change, awakening to our gifts, awakening to our ability to heal. I mean, I've been meeting healers. Michael Lumen is another example of someone that I've watched him literally like on a Facebook Live, this woman who could not, she's like, I'm going in for surgery. I can't really see very well. I'm going to get my eyes operated on. He sat with her for 2 minutes. He said, okay, well, close your eyes. We're going to do this. Sits in silence for 2 minutes. He says, okay, go ahead now, open your eyes. She opened her eyes. She burst out crying. She's like, oh my God, I can see. Like, that's the kind of things that are possible. I think we're going to see more and more of. So that's what is so exciting to me. And that's my passion. So I'm on that journey of like, okay, like what's really going on here? How can we tap into these abilities that we have to instantly heal, to transform our lives, to create greater harmony with each other and to return to our connection with nature, So.
Yeah, for sure. There's more and more people on that path, or on their own journeys within the big path, right?
Yeah.
But it's exciting that
Yeah.
there's so many on it. Yeah. I know my awakening just occurred. I'd always been spiritual, but it was like more religious probably than spiritual, but much spiritual too. But it was like, I hit my bottom and like you said, just not gave up. What's the word you gave in?
Surrender. Yeah.
Surrender. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, I have to do me now. I have to take care of me. And that led to where I am. And it's
Isn't it amazing? I mean, it's so powerful. I mean, sometimes we do have to hit that rock bottom in order. I mean, like Ken Lloyd, I mean, he had to practically die in order to realize, like, oh, wait a minute, I'm not on the right path. Same thing with Michael Luhman. He had the similar experience of just hitting rock bottom, and he experienced a radical transformation. Yeah.
Well, it shows how, it's easy to say and hard to receive. Oftentimes, the saying that everything works for good. It's a Bible verse, but it's also how the universe works. That everything,
True. Yeah, everything is
good.
a gift.
It is
everything. Yeah.
But when someone's going through a hard time, it feels like so easy to say and so,
Like, what are you talking about? How's this a gift?
Yeah, but you look back in a year or 5 years or 10 years and it's, oh, thank God that happened.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah.
It was the best thing that could have happened. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. Like when I think about that huge healing crisis I went through, people ask me, well, would you do it again? I'm like, well, I think, I don't know. I mean, what it revealed to me is that at the deeper level, it was like I was carrying a lot of spiritual greed, which is something I wasn't aware of actually being a thing. But you can have spiritual greed, not just material.
So what is that? What is spiritual greed? How do you?
Well, for me, I was like, I want enlightenment.
And
I want it right now. I'm going to make it happen. That's how intense I was.
Oh, me too.
So here I was. Yeah. And like, boom. Okay. There's your enlightenment. And it was like, oh, okay. There's obviously, God is so much more powerful than I am. So I kind of got what I asked for. And it was very humbling, So backing up, so spiritual greed. And the other thing that I learned was that you don't have to do anything to receive God's love and grace. So my whole life, I was like the straight A student. I was the people pleaser. I did no wrong. I performed to get praise, like I did everything. I was playing music, art, straight A's, good girl. And that's how I lived my life, was just living for praise. And so when I went into the ashram, my thought was, I have to earn God's love. Like if I do enough self-service, I'll receive his grace. If I do enough of this, enough of that, he's going to enlighten me, or I'm going to experience enlightenment. And so what was so interesting is that through that dark night of the soul of really being, my soul had left, so I couldn't feel anything. So it really was like terrifying. There was no sense of life. And what I discovered is as much as I was trying to do all these things, God's grace happened just out of nowhere. I mean, to meet Peter in Colorado and to have this profound experience of just struggling for 2 years and then overnight to just have it disappear like that. It was like, that was the feeling, is that God, you don't have to earn God's grace. It's there for you. And so that was also a really, big bubble to pop in my ego, So that being said, it's like, yeah, I it was a gift, everything about it. And, it revealed to me that there's more to this life than we can see, which is, I'm sure you experience in your work with, doing the ancestral work and connecting with the ancestors. It's like, yeah, all of that there's so much. There's a Zen master named Adyashanti, and he said something that really has stuck with me for many years, and that is, the unseen is so much more real than the seen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. It's like, especially if I'm out in nature and purposefully am tuning into the energies of the sky clock, of the stars or moon or sun, or of nature itself. It's like, that's alive. That's so real. It's like, I don't know. It just lights me up because of the voltage is so much higher, right? And the actual, I think the vibration is higher too. It's much more of, with the love, joy, gratitude, wonder, and curiosity hot mix, whereas ours has a lot more mix in the vibration of sadness or fear, or things we deal with in the physical life, whereas that's not in the vibration of the universe, of nature and things.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
alive. Yeah, it's alive.
Yeah. Yeah.
I took a Family Constellations course with Jill, can't think of her last name, in England. I'll never forget, she called me literally, personally, to say that I was accepted in her program. I just couldn't believe that she would call me from England. But yeah, I only did the one, but it was fascinating. Yeah. And to me, listening to your story, Tania, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
It seems like you collapsed many timelines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think
yeah, you took it on and you didn't know it. And and so you collapsed a lot. And so you're the way shower. Yeah, I think we all are. We all refused to accept what we were handed or what we took on or believed. It's no, I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna do that. And yeah.
Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been quite the challenge because, like you said, I was the black sheep in the family. Yeah, it just was different, very different. And but I'm still here, so that's good. Yeah.
Amazing. I know. Oh my gosh, I just get all the tingles in my body and listening to you speak.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. So we're here to do our work. And I cannot not do my work. I mean, my not very many people have said anything, but I know some people just like, can't you just be, normal?
Yeah, go get a regular job.
No,
I know. When my mother told me, she says, you just need to be in the public school system, go get a regular teaching job. And I thought, oh my God. And I actually was tempted. I almost thought like, okay, I'll get my master's degree. And I started to do the online. I couldn't do it. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do it.
Right. Yeah. I love teaching, but not in the school system. But I do have some good news. I am teaching at a Montessori school. So these are really young children, and I'm teaching them meditation. I
love it. I was teaching at a Montessori school the last 5 years. Yeah, I've been working with young children for a long time. Yeah.
I love they're from like 3 to 6. And this one is like, she's just pressing her fingers so, and it just makes me, and then the one comes up to me and says, how do you inhale? And I went, oh my goodness. And then this other little child comes up the other day and says, I felt God. And I went,
isn't that incredible? Yeah. They've done research that the all children age 3 and under are geniuses.
Oh yeah.
They're literally at the genius level. And then over time,
sure, we dummy them down
and less because of all the stuff that they get shoved into. And by the time they're adults, there's like only 1% or 2% of the population.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the power of the collective. But we
Yeah.
can, that's why we're here. We're going to turn that around. And,
Yeah.
you know, my granddaughter works at this school. And I told her basically 2-3 times, she'll tell me these stories about these kids and how they act up, and how one threw a chair at her. I couldn't even believe that. And I said, Ella, ask the teacher if I could come and teach a meditation so you won't have days like this. And she really hesitated, because because what's really grandma going to do? She's so weird. You know, I'm sure that was part of it. But one day I was near her school and I had no plans. I mean, I was a block away and I thought, I'll go visit Ella. And I walked in and she was like, oh, so surprised. And so was I. I didn't plan it. And then I ended up talking to the school, the headmistress, whatever. And I told her, she goes, oh God, please come back. And so that's how that started. And Ella now is just slowly, last week, she actually joined the meditation circle.
Beautiful.
Yeah, because, you know,
Nice.
grandma's woo-woo, and, you know, she didn't want to be part of it.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you mentioned the meditation with little children, because my granddaughter will be 3 next month. And I've been connecting her with trees. I mean, that's my thing, connecting with nature and sensing into the world around us. But I hadn't worked on meditation. And so, yeah, perfect.
Oh, it's perfect. And yeah, what they come up with is so, this one child told me, I saw my blood vessels in my heart.
Cool.
I went, cool.
Very
I mean,
cool.
you know, it's yeah. So the teacher, one of the teachers, because they're broken in groups, you know, 3, you know, and so the teacher that I got invited me to come back twice a week now. So,
Oh, beautiful.
yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Oh yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah.
So cool.
Family Constellations, I definitely believe in. I took that course because it spoke to me, because how could it not affect us? You know, how can it not, you know, just our lineage, our ancestors, and you know, I mean, I really didn't know, but some of the stuff that I'm carrying, that I'm holding on to, is not even mine. I know that much. It's just like, whoa, where did that come from? And, you know, just knowing that it's not mine. So that's what got me going into it, you know. So I definitely believe in it. I didn't know you could invite people to play the role. I thought you always had to play, you know, but it makes sense because it's the space that we're coming into that matters, because it's sitting there. The energy is sitting there. And if you have someone from the outside come in and they feel it and you can see it, then you can clear it.
Yeah. Yeah. It brings it up into that conscious awareness. There's just something about seeing it in the healing sentences. So, you know, healing sentences are spoken. So those are very important. And, you know, just to make, again, going back to the power of the word, you know, it says in the Bible, right? So speaking these healing sentences does something to where it allows the energy to move. And, you know, it's not that we're rejecting our ancestors or our parents or whatever. It's like we're giving back what doesn't belong to us.
Right.
But we're also honoring them, like, and I honor you as my ancestors. Thank you so much for giving me life. I am connected to you, because you want to be connected to your lineage. Things get really hairy when we cut ourselves off, you know. We're not allowing that flow of love that wants to come through, because everything is love, right? I mean, we've heard that so many times, right? Everything is love. It's just veiled.
And I think once you realize that you want this in your life, It's who you are. I mean, I can't wait to see what else I can tap into, because I'm no longer pushing it away from me because it's not mine, right? It is mine on some level. It's just I don't have to carry the burden anymore, because we created it, we can uncreate it. So so I believe once you acknowledgement is key to anything. Once you acknowledge what you're doing, what you're aware of, how can you just can't do it again and again and again. You want to break it. You want to sever the bad feelings. You want love, because that's what we're made of. And so it's the process of not being afraid. It's like, I'll take it on. What the heck could it be? And you find that it's not all that scary. It's just that collective heavy feeling that we've been holding on to forever, because no one told us any different. No one said, hey, check into it. You just had no clue.
Or even worse. Even worse, it's voodoo, or satanic, or a position often held by religion, right? On the energy work, or the deep things that are not explicitly explained in the Bible or other books.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so glad we're waking up, because we really can't go on the way we are. So let it crumble. So let's build it back up. And I don't know about you, but I just got this feeling that I'm so glad Biden woke up. He really realizes he can't do another 4 years. And that's how I feel. I just feel like he owes himself the privilege of just being retired, or just being who he is. He probably can do whatever he wants. And I'm glad he stepped down, because the new energy is exciting to see. And we'll see what happens. I know, but I usually don't talk about politics, but that came in. It's like, wow, that took courage to say,
I don't think he did it. I don't think he voluntarily stepped down. I think he was forced. But either way, it's good.
It didn't matter. Yeah, it didn't matter. I think it's good.
Oh, well. So we just have a few minutes left, Tania. If there a last thought you want to leave with people, or mention your contacts again, or whatever you'd like to say.
I'll just mention, if you're interested in working with me, you can see my website. I do offer the transformative handwriting. I have a 10-day journey if people are interested in that too. So I look at your handwriting and your name and get you started on that journey. And then I also have a 3-month deep dive program that includes the Family Constellations energy work and the handwriting. And if you're wanting to really kind of dig deeper, if you're in a place where you're just like, okay, I'm struggling in a lot of different areas. Right now, I'm kind of focusing more on moms. I've been inspired to focus more on them, because I just feel that, the family is what our culture is born out from. It is the family. And the mother is the most important person in a human being's life, those first 3 years. And so I have a program for mothers. We look at your relationship with your children, your relationship with yourself. And we just dive into all that, all the ancestral stuff, the family stuff, begin to, create the new neural pathways and beliefs that support you. And you can ask me about that. But and if anybody just wants to connect and have just a 3-minute free 20-minute coffee chat, I'm available. You can find me on Facebook. Tania Elena is how I show up there. Yeah, and I think that's basically it. And then I also have a YouTube channel. And Carla, I realized I should interview you. I'd love for you to talk about your ancestral work.
Oh, that'd be great.
Or Rainy or Jessica. I didn't catch what it was that you do, but my YouTube channel, New Earth Consciousness. I love interviewing people that are the healers and the New Earth leaders and thought leaders, things like that are here for the New Earth. So there's interviews there that people can watch if they're interested. So
Great. Yeah, sounds fun.
yeah.
Very good. So, Tania, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. It's such a great conversation. And thank you, everyone, for watching.
Thank you all. It was really nice talking with you.
And before I forget, if anyone's still watching to the end, please like and subscribe to help us grow so other people can find us more on YouTube. Bye-bye.
Awesome. Bye.